Welcome to Whispers in the Static. I'm your host, Kimiko. Some legends are easy to find. They appear in history books, museum exhibits, and well-worn collections of folklore passed from one generation to the next. Others exist almost entirely in fragments. A sentence in an old journal, a campfire story remembered differently by every person who tells it, a rumor whispered by hikers who insist that they hear something impossible just beyond the reach of their flashlights. Tonight, we're exploring one of those fragments, a mysterious figure known only as the Takai. There are no universally agreed upon descriptions, no definitive illustrations, no scientific classification, only stories. And as you'll discover, sometimes stories have a way of revealing truths, and that the facts alone just cannot. So settle into your chair, turn down the lights, and listen carefully, because in the places where maps end and certainty fades, the static grows louder.
Warning, the following content may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Kimiko is here to bring you fear of the unknown. So sit back, grab a snack, get your favorite drink. It's time to blow your mind. Make you think about the spooky stuff. Whisper, whisper in the static.
Alright, imagine a narrow trail winding through a dense forest. The canopy is so thick that even midday sunlight reaches the ground in scattered patches. Birdsongs fill the air, then all at once it stops. No warning, no gradual fading, just silence. Experienced hikers often notice moments like this. Sometimes that it's a cause for panic because it's a passing predator. And sometimes it's shifting weather. Sometimes it's nothing unusual at all. Yet silence has a remarkable way, an effect on the human mind. It invites explanation. It encourages imagination. And in regions where the legend of the Takai is, it's spoken of in hushed voices. That silence is often the first sign that something unseen may be nearby. So, picture yourself walking down that trail. You round the bend and notice fresh impressions in the damp earth. They're too weathered to identify with confidence. They could belong to any number of animals, or none. So you continue forward. The forest feels unchanged. And you just can't shake the sensation that you're being observed. Every few minutes you glance behind you. Nothing. Only trees, only rocks, and only your footprints. Then you hear what sounds like another step. Not ahead, not behind. Off to the side. Parallel to your path. Keeping pace, you stop. The sound stops. You move again. So does it. Whether the explanation is another hiker, a deer in the brush, or the trick of heightened awareness, your pulse quickens all the same. That's the atmosphere in which the legend of the Takai lives. Not in certainty, but in possibility. Folklore scholars often point out that mysterious beings reflect the landscapes of which they emerge. Mountain legends differ from desert legends. Island myths differ from forest myths. The Takai is the accounts that survive. It's inseparable from isolation. It isn't described as invading villages or terrorizing cities. Instead, it belongs to remote places where nature still dominates the human experience. That alone tells us something important. When people enter environments beyond their control, imagination fills the gaps left behind by limited information. A shifting shadow becomes a figure, a distant cry becomes a warning, an unpleasant event becomes a tale retold for decades. But don't mistake folklore for foolishness. Many enduring legends begin with sincere observation, someone witnessing an unfamiliar animal, someone hears an unexpected sound, someone experiences a coincidence so unusual that it seems impossible, and then the story spreads. Details accumulate. Eventually, the original event is almost impossible to reconstruct. The legend becomes larger than the moment that inspired it. Could that have happened with the Takai? Perhaps. Or perhaps the name itself becomes a catch-all for experiences that resisted explanation. Every culture has words for mysteries that seem to linger at the edge of the understanding. Sometimes naming the unknown makes it easier to live alongside it. Now I want you to imagine spending a night alone in a backcountry shelter. No electricity, no cell service, just a sleeping bag, a lantern, and the sounds of the surrounding wilderness. Around midnight, the wind dies. A branch cracks. You tell yourself it was just settling under its own weight. Then another crack echoes from further away. Then another. The sounds form no obvious pattern, and you wait. Minutes pass, nothing. You begin to relax. Then faintly you hear what could almost be footsteps circling the shelter. Not rustling, not stalking, just simply walking. Steady, measured, curious. Would you investigate? Or would you remain exactly where you are, listening while your imagination does the rest? That's one of the quiet powers of legends, like the Takai. They don't require dramatic confrontations. They thrive on suggestion, on uncertainty, on the possibility that something is just out of sight. And as we begin this journey together, keep one thought in mind. The most memorable mysteries are rarely the ones that provide answers. They're the ones that leave us asking better questions. Who first spoke the name? Who inspired the tale, or what inspired the tale? And why do stories about hidden watchers in lonely places appear across so many different landscapes and generations? We'll spend the rest of this series exploring those questions, not to prove the existence of the Takai, but to understand why its whispers continue to echo long after the footsteps fade. So, the Takai. I want to take you somewhere even more unsettling. Not deeper into the forest, but deeper into the experience of being alone. Because isolation has a curious effect on the perception. Without the constant background noise of civilization, the smallest sounds begin to matter. The scrape of bark, the flutter of wings, the drip of water from moss-covered stone. Your attention sharpens and becomes and sometimes your imagination just follows. So let's imagine an old footbridge crossing a narrow ravine. The bridge is built from weathered planks that creak beneath each step. So beneath you, water rushes over rocks polished smooth by centuries of current. And halfway across, you stop to admire the view. That's when you hear it, a footstep behind you. Not loud, not threatening. Just enough to suggest another traveler has entered the bridge, and you turn. No one. The bridge stretches back towards the trailhead, completely empty. You tell yourself the sound came from shifting wood. And you continue walking and you hear the sound again. One step, then silence. It's impossible to know whether anything unusual happened. but the memory lingers. Days later, when you're telling the story, you might begin with a simple phrase, "I know it sounds strange, but..." That's often how legends begin, not with certainty, with hesitation. In stories associated with the Takai, one detail appears again and again. Witnesses rarely claim that they even got a clear look. Instead, they describe peripheral glances, a figure between trees, movement just outside of a flashlight beam, a silhouette disappearing as soon as the direct attention is focused upon it. And psychologists have long studied how human visual system processes incomplete information. Peripheral vision is excellent at detecting motion, but poor at identifying detail. That combination can produce surprisingly vivid impressions from very limited data. A swaying branch, a passing animal, a shifting patch of shadow. Each can briefly resemble something entirely different, and yet knowing that doesn't necessarily make the experience any less unsettling. There's an old hiking habit I developed years ago. Whenever I enter unfamiliar terrain, I pause ever so often and just simply listen. No movement, no talking, just listening. At first, the forest seems full of sound, but after several minutes, patterns emerge. You begin recognizing repeated bird calls. You notice the direction of the wind. You may even become aware of water flowing somewhere out of sight. Then, every once in a while, something just doesn't fit. A single knock, 3 quick rustles, a distant sound with no obvious source. And most of the time, these mysteries resolve themselves. A squirrel drops a pine cone. A branch falls naturally. A woodpecker changes position. But for those few seconds before explanation arrives, the unknown feels very real. And perhaps that's where the Takai truly resides. Not in the trees, but in the brief interval between certainty and uncertainty. Folklore serves many purposes. It entertains, it preserves culture, and it teaches caution. Some legends encourage children not to wander too far from home. Others remind travelers to respect dangerous landscapes. The Takai can be interpreted in much of the same way. Whether imagined as a hidden watcher or simply a symbol of wilderness itself, it encourages awareness. Don't rush, pay attention. Notice your surroundings. Those are valuable lessons regardless of whether any mysterious being exists. So picture a group of backpackers ending a long day journey, and they're pitching tents beneath towering fir trees and prepare dinner on a small stove. Conversations turn to local legends, and someone mentions the Takai. Another laughs. The third admits that they heard something unusual during the previous trip. Darkness falls. The joke fades. One by one, everyone retreats into sleeping bags. Then the woods become quiet. At 2:17 in the morning, one camper wakes. Not because of a loud noise, but because of the absence of noise. The insects have stopped. The breeze has disappeared. Everything feels suspended. They unzip the tent and peer outside. The moonlight reveals only trees and mist. And for several seconds, they think they see a tall shape standing motionless near the edge of camp, and they blink. The shape resolves into a weathered stump. Heart rate slowing, they crawl back inside. The next morning, the story becomes part of breakfast conversation. By evening, it's already become more dramatic. Not intentionally, but memory itself is reconstructive. We don't replay experiences like recordings, we rebuild them. Each retelling adds emphasis to certain details and quietly lets others fade. That's one reason stories evolve over time. There's something oddly comforting about acknowledging uncertainty. Modern life often pressures us into having immediate answers. And search engines, satellite imagery, and instant communication makes mystery feel increasingly rare. Yet, spend enough time outdoors and uncertainty returns. What made that sound? What crossed the trail before sunrise? Why did every bird stop singing at once? Usually there are perfectly ordinary explanations. Sometimes there are several equally plausible ones, and occasionally there isn't enough information to know. Accepting that ambiguity doesn't weaken our understanding of the world, it expands it. The stories surrounding the Takai remind us that observation and imagination are partners as much as they are rivals. Without observation, there is no mystery, and without imagination, there is no legend. Together, they create narratives that travel across decades, carried by hikers, campers, rangers, and storytellers who all experience something they couldn't quite explain. Perhaps the Takai is nothing more than a name given to those moments, or perhaps names have power precisely because they allow us to talk about experiences that don't fit neatly into categories. Either way, the results are the same. The story survives. Let's take a break.
You're driving down a back road at 2 a.m. The only sound is the hum of your tires, until the radio catches something that doesn't belong, a whisper in the static. A shape moves between the trees. You blink, and it's gone. But what if it wasn't? Imagine this. You're at a campground. Fire's low. Someone asks about the weirdest thing you've ever seen. You pull down your collar, reveal that glowing cryptid design, and suddenly the whole circle is leaning in. Next thing you know, everyone's sharing their stories. That's what these shirts do. They turn strangers into witnesses. They keep the whispers alive. Because in a world full of noise, sometimes the truth only comes through in the static. Now you can wear the truth. Cryptid t-shirts from Bonfire, officially tied to the Whispers in the Static podcast, the Blowing Smoke podcast, and Blix music. Because some legends deserve to be soft, comfortable, and printed in premium ink. Why Bonfire? Because they're the platform that lets creators like Whispers in the Static actually make money doing what they love, without selling out or compromising quality. Premium, ring-spun cotton vibrant, crack-resistant print sizes from S to 5XL, because cryptids come in all shapes, eco-friendly options available, fast shipping, satisfaction guaranteed. That's right. Our brand new official merch line just dropped on Bonfire. High-quality, limited-run cryptid collection tees that look as good around the campfire as they do at your day job. Whether you're Team Chupacabra, hunting the rake, or still convinced the cactus cat owes you money, we've got a shirt for you. These aren't cheap screen print rags. Bonfire uses soft, breathable cotton blends that feel like you're wrapped in a conspiracy blanket. Whispers in the Static, now on your chest. And every purchase helps support independent creators like Whispers in the Static, keeping the stories alive in a world that wants to stay silent. Shop now, https://www.bonfire.com/store/princess-of-gore-1. Follow at Blowing Smoke Podcast.
I think that's why these stories survive. They encourage humility. They remind us that confidence and certainty are not always the same thing. They celebrate the excitement of asking, "What was that?" instead of insisting we already knew. Whether you imagine the Takai as a hidden wanderer, a symbol of unexplored places, or simply the name given to fleeting moments of uncertainty, it has already accomplished something remarkable. It brought us together for 4 nights of questions. 4 nights of forests, 4 nights of listening more carefully than we usually do, and maybe that's the real magic, not finding the answer, but keeping the conversation alive. So, thank you for joining me on Whispers in the Static, and I'm Kimiko. Until our paths cross again, keep your eyes on the trail, your ears open to the wind, and your mind willing to entertain and wonder without surrendering reason. Because somewhere beyond the last bend in the path, there the map fades, the trees grow quiet, and the signal dissolves into static. There will always be another story waiting to be heard. And honestly, I hope it always will. Listen closely, guys.
Warning, the following content may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.